Hi, I'm Dr. Matt B, and these are Emotional Minutes, and it's good to be back with you. So, I was actually looking up some mental health content online, and there's actually a ton of content on mental health now between social media and online blogs, things like that. But how do you know you're really getting good and dependable and reliable mental health information? So, that's what we're going to talk about today: is how to recognize or how to understand which information is good and based on established concepts and things like that because some of that information out there is good. Some of it doesn't hurt or help. It's just kind of in between, and some of that stuff is. Now, I want to give the really important caveat that everybody who's sort of posting online for mental health is really doing so really for good and noble reasons, right? Everybody really wants to help, whether it's something that it's something you've been through before, or you're a mental health clinician and you want to get some good information out there, or you're a researcher and you want to get some good information out there. That's a really noble thing, and that's actually what I like about the mental health field. One of the reasons I went into it really in the first place. Like any field or like any pursuit, some information is better than others. So, really, again, if you're trying to understand more about something that maybe you've experienced personally, or a friend, or maybe you're just curious, today we'll talk about, and in the next couple episodes, actually, we'll talk about a number of ways that you can recognize what is good and dependable, helpful mental health information online. So, the first thing I wanted to talk about is, why does this matter? I mean, sometimes people say, well, if I have behavior and experience, right? Isn't a lot of this stuff just common sense? I've experienced things, I understand, I can just kind of surmise or understand or think about what I've been through. Really, the difficulty is that we as humans are actually biased and limited in our perspective. And also, some things that might be true for us may not be the case or may not be helpful for other individuals. And so, one good example of us being really limited in our perspective is the classic example of the world being round versus being flat. For centuries, we thought the world was flat because, of course, that made sense, right? It was sort of understood, or, you looked on the horizon, you could only see kind of flatness. You would assume, well, the world is flat, right? And at some point, you just kind of fall off the edge. But actually, through really deep understanding, and once we got some more evidence, we actually found that that was not the case. So things that we assume to be true aren't always necessarily true. And so we all have thoughts on why life happens the way it does, or ways we make sense of that. And this is actually a pretty cool thing, right? It sets us apart from other animals. And sometimes those thoughts can be accurate. But again, sometimes they may not actually be the case. We may experience something and sort of draw a conclusion about it that might not be accurate, or might be accurate only for a certain kind of piece or portion of time, or a certain individual situation. So personal experience is really important and it's really valid, but also doesn't then make it so that we're sort of can escape bias or suddenly be outside of bias. Now, there's a lot of research out there on these mental health concepts and sort of scientific, kind of systematic, rigorous research on a lot of these things, where they really look at a lot of these, experiences and phenomena, different disorders. And these studies are done by researchers who, like everyone else, they have a lot of thoughts, and then they go and test those thoughts in a really kind of structured way, and they actually test them over and over. And this is a really the kind of rigorous and kind of formulated process that helps us really sort of know and understand whether something we think to be true is true or occurs in the world, or occurs in certain ways, or whether it does not. So a lot of this kind of understanding if you're getting good mental health information and reliable information kind of centers around, is there research behind it? Have people really studied this and looked at this? And so that really brings us to our first question and our first strategy on how to understand whether or not the information you're finding online on mental health is actually reliable and established, is to really ask anytime you read something on mental health, is just to really ask, okay, where are they getting this information from? Just really getting in that habit of always kind of forming in your head, okay, they just said something about mental health. Where is that information coming from? Because any of us can say that something is the case about the world, but has it really been looked at and established and found, yeah, that is the case, right? And again, using that anytime somebody is saying or making claims about, hey, here's how things are, here's how humans operate, here's what happens when a certain thing comes up, when people act a certain way, or here's why people act a certain way. Is always kind of having that sense, okay, where did they get this information from? So this will actually be what we'll cover in the next couple episodes, is really tools and strategies on how to really sort of understand, hey, am I getting good information? And really a lot of it centering around that first question is, where is this information coming from? And how do I know whether or not it's good information or reliable information? And whether or not it's going to be information that's helpful for me to understand what I'm experiencing or someone else might be experiencing, and then what can be done about it, sort of tools and strategies to go about it. How do we know if that's good information? It was good to be with you today. And again, I'm Dr. Matt B., and these are your Emotional Minutes, and we'll see you next time.